Passport. A passport is a travel document, usually issued by a country's government to its citizens, that certifies the identity and nationality of its holder primarily for the purpose of international travel. Standard passports may contain information such as the holder's name, place and date of birth, photograph, signature, and other relevant identifying information. Many countries issue or plan to issue biometric passports that contain an embedded microchip. As of January 2019, there were over 150 jurisdictions issuing e-passports. Previously issued non-biometric machine-readable passports usually remain valid until their respective expiration dates. A passport holder is normally entitled to enter the country that issued the passport, though some people entitled to a passport may not be full citizens with right of abode, e.g. American nationals or British nationals. A passport does not of itself create any rights in the country being visited or obligate the issuing country in any way, such as providing consular assistance. Some passports attest to the bearer having a status as a diplomat or other official, entitled to rights and privileges such as immunity from arrest or prosecution. Many countries normally allow entry to holders of passports of other countries, sometimes requiring a visa also to be obtained, but this is not an automatic right. Many other additional conditions may apply. Where a country does not recognize another, or is in dispute with it, it may prohibit the use of their passport for travel to that other country, or may prohibit entry to holders of that other country's passports, and sometimes to others who have, for example, visited the other country. Some individuals are subject to sanctions which deny them entry into particular countries. Some countries and international organizations issue travel documents which are not standard passports, but enable the holder to travel internationally to countries that recognize the documents. For example, stateless persons are not normally issued a national passport, but may be able to obtain a refugee travel document or the earlier Nansen passport, which enables them to travel to countries which recognize the document, and sometimes to return to the issuing country. Passports may be requested in other circumstances to confirm identification, such as checking into a hotel or when changing money to a local currency. Passports and other travel documents have an expiry date, after which it is no longer recognized, but it is recommended that a passport is valid for at least 6 months, as many airlines deny boarding to passengers whose passport has a shorter expiry date, even if the destination country may not have such a requirement. History of the earliest known references to paperwork that served in a role similar to that of a passport is found in the Hebrew Bible. Nehemiah 2:7-9, dating from approximately 450 BC, states that Nehemiah, an official serving King Artaxerxes I of Persia, asked permission to travel to Judea. The king granted leave and gave him a letter to the governors beyond the river requesting safe passage for him as he traveled through their lands. Arthashastra c. 3rd century BCE make mentions of passes issued at the rate of 1 masha per pass to enter and exit the country. Chapter 34 of the second book of Arthashastra concerns with the duties of the Mudradiak Salit, superintendent of seals, who must issue sealed passes before a person could enter or leave the countryside. Passports were an important part of the Chinese bureaucracy as early as the Western Han 202 BC, 220 C, if not in the Qin dynasty. They required such details as age, height, and bodily features. These passports Zhuan determined a person's ability to move throughout imperial counties and through points of control. Even children needed passports, but those of 1 year or less who were in their mother's care may not have needed them. In the medieval Islamic Caliphate, a form of passport was the bara, a receipt for taxes paid. Only people who paid their zakah for Muslims or jizya for dhimmis taxes were permitted to travel to different regions of the caliphate. Thus, the barra receipt was a basic passport. Etymological sources show that the term passport is from a medieval document that was required in order to pass through the gate or port of a city wall or to pass through a territory. In medieval Europe, such documents were issued to foreign travelers by local authorities as opposed to local citizens, as is the modern practice, and generally contained a list of towns and cities the document holder was permitted to enter or pass through. On the whole, documents were not required for travel to seaports, which were considered open trading points, but documents were required to travel inland from seaports. King Henry V of England is credited with having invented what some consider the first passport in the modern sense, as a means of helping his subjects prove who they were in foreign lands. The earliest reference to these documents is found in a 1414 Act of Parliament. In 1540, granting travel documents in England became a role of the Privy Council of England, and it was around this time that the term passport was used. In 1794, issuing British passports became the job of the Office of the Secretary of State. The 1548 Imperial Diet of Augsburg required the public to hold imperial documents for travel, at the risk of permanent exile. A rapid expansion of railway infrastructure and wealth in Europe beginning in the mid-19th century led to large increases in the volume of international travel and a consequent unique dilution of the passport system. For approximately 30 years prior to World War I, speed of trains, as well as the number of passengers that crossed multiple borders, made enforcement of passport laws difficult. The general reaction was the relaxation of passport requirements. In the later part of the 19th century and up to World War I, passports were not required on the whole for travel within Europe, and crossing a border was a relatively straightforward procedure. Consequently, comparatively few people held passports. During World War I, European governments introduced border passport requirements for security reasons and to control the immigration of people with useful skills. These controls remained in place after the war, becoming a standard, though controversial, procedure. British tourists of the 1920s complained, especially about attached photographs and physical descriptions, which they considered led to a nasty dehumanization. The British Nationality and Status of Aliens Act was passed in 1914, clearly defining the notions of citizenship and creating a booklet form of the passport. In 1920, the League of Nations held a conference on passports, the Paris Conference on Passports and Customs Formalities and Through Tickets. Passport guidelines and a general booklet design resulted from the conference, which was followed up by conferences in 1926 and 1927, while the United Nations held a travel conference in 1963. No passport guidelines resulted from it. Passport standardization came about in 1980 under the auspices of the International Civil Aviation Organization (ICAO). ICAO standards include those for machine-readable passports. Such passports have an area where some of the information otherwise written in textual form is written as strings of alphanumeric characters, printed in a manner suitable for optical character recognition. This enables border controllers and other law enforcement agents to process these passports more quickly without having to input the information manually into a computer. ICAO publishes Doc 9303 Machine-Readable Travel Documents, the technical standard for machine-readable passports. A more recent standard is for biometric passports. These contain biometrics to authenticate the identity of travelers. The passport's critical information is stored on a tiny RFID computer chip, much like information stored on smart cards. Like some smart cards, the passport booklet design calls for an embedded contactless chip that is able to hold digital signature data to ensure the integrity of the passport and the biometric data. Issuances. Historically, legal authority to issue passports is founded on the exercise of each country's executive discretion or crown prerogative. Certain legal tenets follow, namely, first, passports are issued in the name of the state. Second, no person has a legal right to be issued a passport. Third, each country's government, in exercising its executive discretion, has complete and unfettered discretion to refuse to issue or to revoke a passport. And fourth, that the latter discretion not subject to judicial review. However, legal scholars including A.J. Arkelian have argued that evolutions in both the constitutional law of democratic countries and the international law applicable to all countries now render those historical tenets both obsolete and unlawful. Under some circumstances, some countries allow people to hold more than one passport document. This may apply, for example, to people who travel a lot on business and may need to have, say, a passport to travel on while another is awaiting a visa for another country. The UK, for example, may issue a second passport if the applicant can show a need and supporting documentation, such as a letter from an employer. National conditions. Today, most countries issue individual passports to applying citizens, including children, with only a few still issuing family passports. See below under types or including children on a parent's passport. Most countries having switched to individual passports in the early to mid-20th century. Passport holders apply for a new passport commonly due to expiration of the previous passport, insufficient validity for entry to some countries, or lack of blank pages. They may be required to surrender the old passport for invalidation. In some circumstances, an expired passport is not required to be surrendered or invalidated. For example, under the law of most countries, passports are government property and may be limited or revoked at any time, usually on specified grounds, and possibly subject to judicial review. In many countries, surrender of one's passport is a condition of granting bail in lieu of imprisonment for a pending criminal trial due to flight risk. Each country sets its own conditions for the issue of passports. For example, Pakistan requires applicants to be interviewed before a Pakistani passport will be granted. When applying for a passport or a national ID card, all Pakistanis are required to sign an oath declaring Mirza Ghulam Ahmad to be an impostor prophet and all Ahmadis to be non-Muslims. Some countries limit the issuance of passports where incoming and outgoing international travels are highly regulated. Other countries put requirements on some citizens in order to be granted passports, such as Finland, where male citizens aged 18-30 years must prove that they have completed or are exempt from their obligatory military service to be granted an unrestricted passport. Otherwise, a passport is issued valid only until the end of their 28th year, to ensure that they return to carry out military service. Other countries with obligatory military service, such as South Korea and Syria, have similar requirements, e.g. South Korean passport and Syrian passport. National status. Passports contain a statement of the nationality of the holder. In most countries, only one class of nationality exists, and only one type of ordinary passport is issued. However, several types of exceptions exist. Multiple classes of nationality in a single country. The United Kingdom has a number of classes of United Kingdom nationality due to its colonial history. A result, the UK issues various passports which are similar in appearance but representative of different nationality statuses, which, in turn, has caused foreign governments to subject holders of different UK passports to different entry requirements. Multiple types of passports, one nationality. The People's Republic of China (PRC) authorizes its special administrative regions of Hong Kong and Macau to issue passports to their permanent residents with Chinese nationality under the one country, two systems arrangement. Visa policies imposed by foreign authorities on Hong Kong and Macau permanent residents holding such passports are different from those holding ordinary passports of the People's Republic of China. A Hong Kong Special Administrative Region passport HKSAR passport permits visa-free access to many more countries than ordinary PRC passports. The three constituent countries of the Danish realm have a common nationality. Denmark proper is a member of the European Union, but Greenland and Faroe Islands are not. Danish citizens residing in Greenland or Faroe Islands can choose between holding a Danish EU passport and a Greenlandic or Faroes non-EU Danish passport. Special nationality class through investment. In rare instances, a nationality is available through investment. Some investors have been described in Tongan passports as a Tongan protected person, a status which does not necessarily carry with it the right of abode in Tonga. Passports without sovereign territory. Several entities without a sovereign territory issue documents described as passports, most notably Iroquois League, the Aboriginal Provisional Government in Australia, and the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. Such documents are not necessarily accepted for entry into a country. Validity. Passports have a limited validity, usually between 5 and 10 years. Many countries require passports to be valid for a minimum of 6 months beyond the planned date of departure, as well as having at least 2 to 4 blank pages. It is recommended that a passport be valid for at least 6 months from the departure date, as many airlines deny boarding to passengers whose passport has a shorter expiry date, even if the destination country does not have such a requirement for incoming visitors. Value. One method to measure the value of a passport is to calculate its visa-free score VFS, which is the number of countries that allow the holder of that passport entry for general tourism without requiring a visa. As of 1 July 2019, the strongest and weakest passports are as follows. Types. A rough standardization exists in types of passports throughout the world, although passport types, number of pages, and definitions can vary by country. Full passports. Passport, also called ordinary, regular, or tourist passport, the most common form of passport, issued to individual citizens and other nationals. Most nations stopped issuing family passports several decades ago due to logistical and security reasons. Official passport, also called service passport, issued to government employees for work-related travel and their accompanying dependents. Diplomatic passport, issued to diplomats of a country and their accompanying dependents for official international travel and residence. Accredited diplomats of certain grades may be granted diplomatic immunity by a host country. Any diplomatic privileges apply in the country to which the diplomat is accredited. Elsewhere, diplomatic passport holders must adhere to the same regulations and travel procedures as are required of other nationals of their country. Holding a diplomatic passport in itself does not accord any specific privileges. At some airports, there are separate passport checkpoints for diplomatic passport holders. Emergency passport, also called temporary passport, issued to persons whose passports were lost, stolen, or do not have at all, and they have no time to obtain a replacement, e.g., someone abroad and needing to fly home within a few days. These passports are intended for very short time durations, e.g., one-way travel back to home country, and will naturally have much shorter validity periods than regular passports. Laissez-passer are also used for this purpose. Collective passport issued to defined groups for travel together to particular destinations, such as a group of school children on a school trip. Family passport issued to an entire family. There is one passport holder who may travel alone or with other family members included in the passport. A family member who is not the passport holder cannot use the passport for travel without the passport holder. Few countries now issue family passports. For example, all the EU countries, Canada, the United States, and the United Kingdom, among numerous other countries, require each child to have their own passport. Non-citizen passports. Latvia and Estonia. Non-citizens in Latvia and Estonia are individuals, primarily of Russian or Ukrainian ethnicity, who are not citizens of Latvia or Estonia but whose families have resided in the area since the Soviet era, and thus have the right to a non-citizen passport issued by the Latvian government, as well as other specific rights. Approximately two-thirds of them are ethnic Russians, followed by ethnic Belarusians, ethnic Ukrainians, ethnic Poles, and ethnic Lithuanians. Non-citizens in the two countries are issued special non-citizen passports as opposed to regular passports issued by the Estonian and Latvian authorities to citizens. American Samoa. Although all U.S. citizens are also U.S. nationals, the reverse is not true. As specified in 8 U.S.C. SS 1408, a person whose only connection to the U.S. is through birth in an outlying possession, which is defined in 8 U.S.C. SS 1101 as American Samoa and Swains Island, the latter of which is administered as part of American Samoa or through descent from a person so born, acquires U.S. nationality but not U.S. citizenship. This was formerly the case in a few other current or former U.S. overseas possessions, i.e., the Panama Canal Zone and Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands. The U.S. passport issued to non-citizen nationals contains the endorsement Code 9, which states, "The bearer is a United States national and not a United States citizen." On the annotations page, non-citizen U.S. nationals may reside and work in the United States without restrictions, and may apply for citizenship under the same rules as resident aliens. Like resident aliens, they are not presently allowed by any U.S. state to vote in federal or state elections, although, as with resident aliens, there is no constitutional prohibition against their doing so. United Kingdom. Due to the complexity of British nationality law, the United Kingdom has 6 variants of British nationality. Out of these variants, however, only the status known as British citizen grants the right of abode in a particular country or territory, the United Kingdom, while others do not. Hence, the UK issues British passports to those who are British nationals but not British citizens, which include British Overseas Territories citizens, British overseas citizens, British subjects, British nationals overseas, and British protected persons. Andorra. Children born in Andorra to foreign residents who have not yet resided in the country for a minimum of 10 years are provided a provisional passport. Once the child reaches 18 years old, he or she must confirm their nationality to the government. Other types of travel documents. Laissez-passer are issued by national governments or international organizations such as the UN as emergency passports, travel on humanitarian grounds, or for official travel. Interpol travel document issued by Interpol to police officers for official travel, allowing them to bypass certain visa restrictions in certain member states when investigating transnational crime. Certificate of identity, also called alien's passport, or informally, a travel document issued under certain circumstances, such as statelessness, to non-citizen residents. An example is the Nansen passport pictured, sometimes issued as an internal passport to non-residents. Refugee travel document issued to a refugee by the state in which she or he currently resides, allowing them to travel outside that state and to return. Made necessary because refugees are unlikely to be able to obtain passports from their state of nationality. Permits. Many types of travel permit exist around the world. Some, like the U.S. re-entry permit and Japan re-entry permit, allow residents of those countries who are unable to obtain a permanent residence to travel outside the country and return. Others, like the Bangladesh Special Passport, the Two-Way Permit, and the Taipei Taiwan Compatriot Entry Permit, are used for travel to and from specific countries or locations. Chinese travel document issued by the People's Republic of China to Chinese citizens in lieu of a passport. Hajj passport, a special passport used only for Hajj and Umrah pilgrimage to Mecca and Medina, Saudi Arabia. A diplomatic visa in combination with a regular or diplomatic passport. Intra-sovereign territory travel that requires passports. For some countries, passports are required for some types of travel between their sovereign territories. 3 examples of this are Hong Kong and Macau, both Chinese Special Administrative Regions (SAR). Traveling between the 3 is technically not international, so citizens of the 3 locations do not use passports to travel between the 3 places, instead using other documents, such as the mainland travel permit for the people of Hong Kong and Macau. Permanent residents of Hong Kong and Macau whose citizenship doesn't cover visa-free access to mainland China will still need to apply for a visa to visit mainland China. Foreign visitors are required to present their passports with applicable visas at the immigration control points. Malaysia, where an arrangement was agreed upon during the formation of the country, the East Malaysian states of Sabah and Sarawak were allowed to retain their respective immigration control systems. Therefore, a passport is required for foreign visitors when traveling from Peninsular Malaysia to East Malaysia, as well as moving between Sabah and Sarawak. For social/business visits not more than 3 months, Peninsular Malaysians are required to produce a MyCAD or, for children below 12 years, a birth certificate, and obtain a special immigration printout form to be kept until departure. However, one may present a Malaysian passport or a restricted travel document and get an entry stamp on the travel document. Avoid the hassle of keeping an extra sheet of paper. For other purposes, Peninsular Malaysians are required to have a long-term residence permit along with a passport or a restricted travel document. Norfolk Island, one of Australia's external, self-governing territories, has its own immigration controls. Until 2018, Australian and New Zealand citizens travelling to the territory were required to carry a passport or an Australian document of identity, while people of other nationalities must also have a valid Australian visa and/or permanent resident of Norfolk Island visa. Internal passports. Internal passports are issued by some countries as an identity document. An example is the internal passport of Russia or certain other post-Soviet countries dating back to imperial times. Some countries use internal passports for controlling migration within a country. In some countries, the international passport or passport for travel abroad is a second passport, in addition to the internal passport. Separate passports for travel abroad existed or exist in the following countries. Russia, see Internal Passport of Russia. Ukraine, see Ukrainian Identity Card / previous internal passport. In the Soviet Union, there were several types of international passport: an ordinary one, a civil service passport, a diplomatic passport, and a sailor's passport. See passport system in the Soviet Union. Countries of the Eastern Bloc had a system of internal/international passports similar to that of the Soviet Union. Designs and format. International Civil Aviation Organization standards. The International Civil Aviation Organization (ICAO) issues passport standards which are treated as recommendations to national governments. The size of passport booklets normally complies with the ISO/IEC 7810 ID3 standard, which specifies a size of 125 x 88 mm4, 921 x 3, 465 in. This size is the B7 format. Passport cards are issued to the ID1 credit card sized standard. A standard passport booklet format includes the cover, which contains the name of the issuing country, a national symbol, a description of the document, e.g., passport, diplomatic passport, and a biometric passport symbol if applicable. Inside, there is a title page also naming the country. A data page follows containing information about the bearer, the issuing authority. There are blank pages for visas and to stamp for entries and exit. Passports have numerical or alphanumerical designators, serial number assigned by the issuing authority. Machine-readable passport standards have been issued by the ICAO, with an area set aside where most of the information written as text is also printed in a manner suitable for optical character recognition. Biometric passports or e-passports have an embedded contactless chip in order to conform to ICAO standards. These chips contain data about the passport bearer, a photographic portrait in digital format, and data about the passport itself. Many countries now issue biometric passports in order to speed up clearance through immigration and the prevention of identity fraud. These reasons are disputed by privacy advocates. Common designs. Passport booklets from almost all countries around the world display the national coat of arms of the issuing country on the front cover. The United Nations keeps a record of national coats of arms. Displaying a coat of arms is not an internationally recognized requirement for a passport. There are several groups of countries that have, by mutual agreement, adopted common designs for their passports. The European Union. The design and layout of passports of the member states of the European Union are a result of consensus and recommendation rather than of directive. Passports are issued by member states and may consist of either the usual passport booklet or the newer passport card format. The covers of ordinary passport booklets are burgundy red except for Croatia, which has a blue cover, with European Union written in the national language or languages. Below that are the name of the country, the national coat of arms, the word or words for passport, and at the bottom, symbol for a biometric passport. The data page can be at the front or at the back of a passport booklet, and there are significant design differences throughout to indicate which member state is the issuer. Member states that participate in the Schengen Agreement have agreed that their e-passports should contain fingerprint information in the chip. In 2006, the members of the CA4 Treaty Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, and Nicaragua adopted a common design passport called the Central American Passport, following a design already in use by Nicaragua and El Salvador since the mid-1990s. It features a navy blue cover with the words America Central and a map of Central America, and with the territory of the issuing country highlighted in gold in place of the individual nation's coats of arms. At the bottom of the cover are the name of the issuing country and the passport type. The members of the Andean Community of Nations Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru began to issue commonly designed passports in 2005. Specifications for the common passport format were outlined in an Andean Council of Foreign Ministers meeting in 2002. Previously issued national passports will be valid until their expiry dates. Andean passports are Bordeaux burgundy red with words in gold. Centered above the national seal of the issuing country is the name of the regional body, in Spanish Comunidad Andina. Below the seal is the official name of the member country. At the bottom of the cover is the Spanish word passport along with the English passport. Venezuela had issued Andean passports, but has subsequently left the Andean community, so they will no longer issue Andean passports. The Union of South American Nations signaled an intention to establish a common passport design, but it appears that implementation will take many years. The member states of the Caribbean Community CARICOM recently began issuing passports with a common design. It features the CARICOM symbol along with the national coat of arms and name of the member state, rendered in a CARICOM official language: English, French, Dutch. The member states which use the common design are Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Belize, Dominica, Grenada, Guyana, Jamaica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. There was a movement by the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States (OCS) to issue a common designed passport. Request page. Passports sometimes contain a message, usually near the front, requesting that the passport's bearer be allowed to pass freely, and further requesting that, in the event of need, the bearer be granted assistance. The message is sometimes made in the name of the government or the head of state, and may be written in more than one language, depending on the language policies of the issuing authority. Languages. In 1920, an international conference on passports and through tickets held by the League of Nations recommended that passports be issued in the French language, historically the language of diplomacy, and one other language. Currently, the ICAO recommends that passports be issued in English and French, or in the national language of the issuing country, and in either English or French. Many European countries use their national language along with English and French. Some unusual language combinations are: national passports of the European Union bear all of the official languages of the European Union. 2 or 3 languages are printed at the relevant points, followed by reference numbers which point to the passport page where translations into the remaining languages appear. Canadian passports are written in both English and French. Both languages are included due to their position as official languages of Canada. The Barbadian passport and the United States passport are trilingual: English, French, and Spanish. United States passports were traditionally English and French, but began being printed with a Spanish message and labels during the late 1990s, in recognition of Puerto Rico's Spanish-speaking status. Only the message and labels are in multiple languages. The cover and instructions pages are printed solely in English. In Belgium, all 3 official languages, Dutch, French, German, appear on the cover, in addition to English on the main page. The order of the official languages depends on the official residence of the holder. Passports of Bosnia and Herzegovina are in the 3 official languages of Bosnian, Serbian, and Croatian in addition to English. Brazilian passports contain 4 languages: Portuguese, the official country language. British passports bear English and French on the information page and Welsh and Scottish Gaelic translations on an extra page. Cypriot passports are in Greek, Turkish, and English. The first page of a Libyan passport is in Arabic only. The last page, first page from a left to right script viewpoint, has an English equivalent of the information on the Arabic first page right to left script. Similar arrangements are found in the passports of some other Arab countries. Indian passports are in English and Hindi. Iraqi passports are in Arabic, Kurdish, and English. Macau SAR passports are in 3 languages: Chinese, Portuguese, and English. New Zealand passports are in English and Maori. Norwegian passports are in the two forms of the Norwegian language, Bokmål and Nynorsk, Northern Sami and English. Pakistani passports are issued in English and Urdu. Sri Lankan passports are in Sinhala, Tamil and English. Swiss passports are in 5 languages: German, French, Italian, Romansh, and English. Page 2 and 3 contains translations into 26 languages. Lebanese passports are in 3 languages: Arabic, English, and French. Syrian passports are in Arabic, English, and French. Nepalese passports are in English and Nepalese. Immigration stamps. For immigration control, officials of many countries use entry and exit stamps. Depending on the country, stamp can serve different purposes. For example, in the United Kingdom, an immigration stamp in a passport includes the formal leave to enter granted to a person subject to entry control. In other countries, a stamp activates or acknowledges the continuing leave conferred in the passport bearer's entry clearance. Under the Schengen system, a foreign passport is stamped with a date stamp which does not indicate any duration of stay. This means that the person is deemed to have permission to remain either for 3 months or for the period shown on his visa if specified otherwise. Visas often take the form of an inked stamp. Member states of the European Union are not permitted to place a stamp in the passport of a person who is not subject to immigration control. Stamping is prohibited because it is an imposition of a control that the person is not subject to. Countries usually have different styles of stamps for entries and exits to make it easier to identify the movements of people. Ink color might be used to designate mode of transportation: air, land, or sea, such as in Hong Kong prior to 1997, while border styles did the same thing in Macau. Other variations include changing the size of the stamp to indicate length of stay, as in Singapore. Immigration stamps are a useful reminder of travels. Some travelers collect immigration stamps in passports and will choose to enter or exit countries via different means, for example, land, sea, or air, in order to have different stamps in their passports. Some countries, such as Liechtenstein, that do not stamp passports may provide a passport stamp on request for such memory purposes. Monaco at its tourist office and Andorra at its border do this as well. These are official stamps issued by government offices. However, some private enterprises may for a price stamp passports at historic sites, and these have no legal standing. It is possible that such memorial stamps can preclude the passport bearer from traveling to certain countries. For example, Finland consistently rejects what they call falsified passports, where passport bearers have been refused visas or entry due to memorial stamps and are required to renew their passports. Limitations on use. A passport is merely an identity document that is widely recognized for international travel purposes, and the possession of a passport does not in itself entitle a traveler to enter any country other than the country that issued it, and sometimes not even then. Many countries normally require visitors to obtain a visa. Each country has different requirements or conditions for the grant of visas, such as for the visitor not being likely to become a public charge for financial, health, family, or other reasons, and the holder not having been convicted of a crime or considered likely to commit one. Where a country does not recognize another, or is in dispute with it, entry may be prohibited to holders of passports of the other party to the dispute, and sometimes to others who have, for example. A country that issues a passport may also restrict its validity or use in specified circumstances, such as use for travel to certain countries for political, security, or health reasons. Asia. Bangladesh. A Bangladeshi passport is valid for travel to all countries except Israel. Mainland China and Taiwan nationals of Taiwan Republic of China ROC use a special travel permit mainland travel permit for Taiwan residents issued by China's People's Republic of China PRC Ministry of Public Security to enter mainland China. Nationals of mainland China entering Taiwan must also use a special travel permit exit and entry permit issued by the ROC Immigration Department. Depending on where they are coming from, they also need either a Chinese passport when departing from outside mainland China, or a passport-like travel document, known as Taiwan Travel Permit for mainland residents, when departing from mainland China, along with a special visa-like exit endorsement issued by PRC immigration authorities affixed to the permit. Chinese nationals who are Hong Kong and Macau permanent residents can apply for the ROC exit and entry permit online or on arrival, and must travel with their HKSAR passport, MSAR passport, or BNO passport. Hong Kong and Macau, a home return permit is required for Chinese citizens domiciled in Hong Kong and Macau to enter and exit mainland China. The Hong Kong Special Administrative Region passport and the Macau Special Administrative Region passport cannot be used for travel to mainland China. Also, British national overseas passports cannot be used by Chinese citizens who reside in Hong Kong, as the PRC does not recognize dual nationality. Mainland China residents visiting Hong Kong or Macau are required to hold an exit entry permit for traveling to and from Hong Kong and Macau Wang Lai Gangao Tong Xinjiang or Shuang Chengjiang issued by mainland authorities, along with an endorsement Kaiyinju on the exit entry permit. Non-permanent residents of Macau who are not eligible for a passport may travel to Hong Kong on the visit permit to Hong Kong Ao Men Ju Men Wan Lai Xiang Gang Ti by Xinjiang Klu Xinjiang valid for 7 years, which allows holders to travel only to Hong Kong SAR during its validity. Israel until 1952. Israeli passports were normally not valid for travel to the then West Germany, as in the aftermath of the Holocaust, it was considered improper for Israelis to visit West Germany on any business but official state affairs. Some Muslim and African countries do not permit entry to anyone using an Israeli passport. In addition, Iran, Kuwait, Lebanon, Libya, Saudi Arabia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen do not allow entry to people with evidence of travel to Israel, or whose passports have either a used or an unused Israeli visa. For this reason, Israel no longer stamps visa stamps directly on passports, but on a slip of paper that serves as a substitute for a stamp on a travel document. Some countries do not permit their passports to be used for travel to Israel. Lebanon, a Lebanese passport is valid to travel to all countries except Israel. Malaysia, a Malaysian passport is valid to travel to all countries except Israel. Brunei, a Bruneian passport is valid to travel to all countries except Israel. Pakistan, a Pakistani passport is valid for travel to all countries except Israel. Philippines, between 2004 and mid-2011, Philippine passports could not be used for travel to Iraq due to the security threats in that country. South Korea, the South Korean government has banned travel to Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen for safety reasons. South Korea does not consider travel within the Korean peninsula between South Korean and North Korean administrations to be international travel, as South Korea's constitution regards the entire Korean peninsula as its territory. South Koreans going to the Kaesong Industrial Region in North Korea pass through the Gyeongui Highway Transit Office at Dorasan, Munsan, where they present a plastic visit certificate Bangmanjumyo Seo card issued by the South Korean Ministry of Unification, and an immigration stamped passage certificate Giseonganjibji Kulabjung issued by the Kaesong Industrial District Management Committee Giseonganjibji Gwanriwiwionho. Until 2008, South Koreans moving to tourist areas in the north, such as Mount Kumgang, needed to carry a South Korean ID card for security reasons. Europe. As a result of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia, Azerbaijan refuses entry to holders of Armenian passports, as well as passport holders of any other country, if they are of Armenian descent. It also strictly refuses entry to foreigners in general whose passport shows evidence of entry into the self-proclaimed Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, immediately declaring them permanent persona non grata. Conversely, Armenia does allow visa-free entry for holders of Azerbaijani passports. The Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus (TRNC) issues passports, but only Turkey recognizes its statehood. TRNC passports are not accepted for entry into the Republic of Cyprus via airports or seaports, but are accepted at the designated Green Line crossing points. However, all Turkish Cypriots are entitled by law to be issued a passport by the Republic of Cyprus, and since the opening of the border between the two sides, Cypriot and EU citizens can travel freely between them. The United Kingdom, United States, France, Australia, Pakistan, and Syria currently officially accept TRNC passports with the relevant visas. Spain does not accept United Kingdom passports issued in Gibraltar, alleging that the government of Gibraltar is not a competent authority for issuing UK passports. The word Gibraltar now appears beneath the words United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland on the covers of British passports issued in Gibraltar. British passports may be issued to people holding any of the various forms of British nationality, with holders identified as of 2014 as British citizens (GBR), British Overseas Territories citizens (GBD), British Overseas Citizens (GBO). Holders other than British citizens may not have the right to enter or reside in the United Kingdom, and other countries may apply restrictions that do not apply to GBR holders. Oceania. Some countries do not accept Tongan protected person passports, though they accept Tongan citizen passports. Tongan protected person passports are sold by the government of Tonga to anyone who is not a Tongan national. A holder of a Tongan protected person passport is forbidden to enter or settle in Tonga. Generally, those holders are refugees or stateless persons for some other reason. South America. For countries that do not maintain diplomatic relations with Brazil, such as Kosovo, Taiwan, and Western Sahara, diplomatic, official, and work passports are not accepted, and visas are only granted to tourist or business visitors. In addition, except for Kosovo and Taiwan, these visas must be issued on a Brazilian laissez passer, not on the country's passport. International travel without passports. International travel is possible without passports in some circumstances. Nonetheless, a document stating citizenship, such as a national identity card or an enhanced driver's license, is usually required. Africa. Members of the East African Community composed of Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi may issue an East African passport. East African passports are recognized by only the 5 members, and are only used for travel between or among those countries. The requirements for eligibility are less rigorous than are the requirements for national passports used for other international travel. The member states of the Economic Community of West African States (ECOWAS) do not require passports for their citizens when moving within the community. National ID cards are sufficient. The member states are Benin, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Ivory Coast, Liberia, Mali, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone, and Togo. Asia. Passports are not needed by citizens of India and Nepal to travel to each other's country, but some identification is required for border crossings. Citizens of Lebanon and Jordan do not require passports when traveling in either country if they are carrying ID cards. Travel between Russia and some former Soviet republics, designated by membership in the Commonwealth of Independent States, may be accomplished with a national identity document, e.g., an internal passport or passport. However, according to a statement made by President Putin in December 2012, Russia has plans to restrict travel without a passport only to citizens of the member states of the Customs Union of Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Russia by 2015. After that date, citizens of other CIS states will need passports, although not visas, to visit Russia. Citizens of the Cooperation Council for the Arab States of the Gulf countries need only national ID cards, also referred to as civil ID cards, to cross the borders of Council countries. This also applies to anyone that has a residence permit in any of the GCC countries. Europe. Travel with minimal travel documents is possible between the United Kingdom, the Isle of Man, the Guernsey, Jersey, and the Republic of Ireland, which together form the common travel area. The countries that are part of the Schengen area do not implement passport controls between each other unless exceptional circumstances occur. It is, however, mandatory to carry a passport, compliant national identity card, alien's resident permit, or some other photo ID. A citizen of one of the 27 member states of the European Union or of Andorra, Iceland, Liechtenstein, Monaco, Norway, San Marino, Switzerland, and Vatican City may travel in and between these countries using a standard compliant national identity card rather than a passport. Not all of those countries issue standard compliant national identity cards, notably Denmark, Iceland, the Republic of Ireland, though the Irish passport card is accepted, and Vatican City. Nordic Passport Union allows Nordic citizens, i.e. citizens of Denmark, including the Faroe Islands, Finland, Iceland, Norway, and Sweden, to visit any of these countries without being in possession of identity documents. Greenland and Svalbard are excluded. This is an extension of the principle that Nordic citizens need no identity document in their own country. A means to prove identity when requested is recommended, e.g. using a driver's license, which does not state citizenship, even in one's own country. Joining the Schengen area in 2001 has not changed those rules. Albania accepts national ID cards or passports for entry from nationals of the EU, EFTA, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kazakhstan, Kosovo, Monaco, Montenegro, North Macedonia, San Marino, and Singapore. Bosnia and Herzegovina accepts national ID cards or passports for entry from citizens of the EU, EFTA, Monaco, Montenegro, San Marino, and Serbia. North Macedonia accepts national ID cards or passports for entry from nationals of the EU, EFTA, Albania, Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, and Serbia. Montenegro accepts national ID cards or passports for entry from nationals of the EU, EFTA, Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, Monaco, North Macedonia, San Marino, and Serbia. Serbia accepts national ID cards or passports for entry from nationals of the EU, EFTA except Liechtenstein, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, and North Macedonia. Citizens of Belgium, France, Georgia, Germany, Greece, Italy, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Malta, the Netherlands, the partly recognized Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, Portugal, Spain, Switzerland, and Ukraine are allowed to enter Turkey with a valid national ID card. EU and Turkish citizens are allowed to enter the partly recognized Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus with a valid ID card. EU and Turkish citizens are allowed to enter Georgia with a valid ID card. North America. CARICOM countries issue a CARICOM passport to their citizens, and as of June 2009, eligible nationals in participating countries will be permitted to use the CARICOM travel card, which provides for intra-community travel without a passport. There are several cards available to certain North American residents which allow passport-free travel, generally only for land and sea border crossings. The U.S. passport card is an alternative to an ordinary U.S. passport booklet for land and sea travel within North America, Canada, Mexico, the Caribbean, and Bermuda. Like the passport book, the passport card is issued only to U.S. citizens and non-citizen nationals. The Nexus card allows border crossing between the U.S. and Canada for U.S. nationals and Canadian citizens. It can also be used for air travel as the only means of identification for U.S. nationals and Canadian citizens. Card can also be used for entering the U.S. from Mexico. The Sentry card allows passport-free entry into the U.S. from Mexico and Canada, but not vice versa for U.S. citizens and nationals as well as Canadian citizens. The Fast card can be used for crossing between U.S. and Canada, as well as entering U.S. from Mexico for U.S. and Canadian citizens. U.S. nationals may further enter the U.S. and Canada using an enhanced driver license issued by the states of Vermont, Washington, Michigan, and New York, which qualify as WHTI compliant. Other documents that can be used to enter the U.S. include enhanced tribal cards, U.S. military ID cards plus military travel orders, U.S. merchant mariner ID cards, when traveling on maritime business, Native American tribal ID cards, Form I-872 American Indian card. Canadian citizens may enter the U.S. and Canada via land or sea using an enhanced WHTI-compliant driver's license. These are currently issued by British Columbia and Manitoba, while valid Ontario ones are accepted until expiry. If Canadians wish to enter the U.S. via air, they must use a passport book or a Nexus card. Canadian citizens may return to Canada using any proof of citizenship and identity. However, those without an acceptable document will be questioned by a border services officer till their identity is established. For travel to the French islands of Saint Pierre and Miquelon directly from Canada, Canadians and foreign nationals holding Canadian identification documents are exempted from passport and visa requirements for stays of maximum duration of 3 months within a period of 6 months. Accepted documents include a driver's license, citizenship card, permanent resident card, and others. Those without Canadian identifications are not exempt and must carry a passport. Oceania. Residents of 9 coastal villages in Papua New Guinea are permitted to enter the protected zone of the Torres Strait part of Queensland, Australia for traditional purposes. This exemption from passport control is part of a treaty between Australia and Papua New Guinea negotiated when PNG became independent from Australia in 1975. Vessels from other parts of Papua New Guinea and other countries attempting to cross into Australia or Australian waters are stopped by Australian Customs or the Royal Australian Navy. South America. Many Central American and South American nationals can travel within their respective regional economic zones, such as MERCOSUR and the Andean Community of Nations, or on a bilateral basis, e.g., between Chile and Peru, between Brazil and Chile without passports, presenting instead their national ID cards, or, for short stays, their voter registration cards. In some cases, this travel must be done over land rather than by air. MERCOSUR citizens can travel visa-free and only with their ID cards between the member and associated countries Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, Paraguay, Uruguay, Brazil, and Argentina.